I want you to imagine something for a second. Put yourself in the shoes of a 17-year-old girl who has just been expelled from a strict all-girls Catholic school.
Oh, wow. Which is a nightmare scenario for anyone, really.
Right, total nightmare. And when you ask the administration why, the reasons given on the paperwork are failing grades and, quite literally, misfit behavior.
Like, that's an official administrative term, misfit behavior.
Exactly. So you're a teenager, you're entirely adrift, and the structured path you were supposed to be walking down has just abruptly ended.
Yeah, you're just kind of out there.
Right. Now imagine that same teenager sitting in her bedroom, picking up a secondhand guitar for the very first time. She hops on YouTube, watches a few tutorials to, teach herself some basic chords.
As you do.
As you do. And eventually she uploads a simple acoustic song to the internet as a total joke under a fake, completely gibberish Instagram name.
A Finsta, basically.
A Finsta, exactly. Fast forward just a few years from that lonely bedroom moment, and that exact same misfit is opening for Taylor Swift in massive stadiums. She's hitting #1 on the UK charts and becoming, honestly, one of the most defining voices in modern rock music.
It's an incredible trajectory. I mean, truly. But the reality of how she actually navigated that journey is, well, it's far more complicated than just a simple rags to riches story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it involves the intense whiplash of sudden internet fame, a very real battle against, the algorithms that try to control artists, and a relentless fight to just be taken seriously on her own terms.
Welcome to another episode of People Pod. We're doing a deep dive today into the fascinating story of Beatrice Christie Ilije Lois, who is known globally to millions as Beabadoobee.
Right, the artist who essentially resurrected 90s indie and slacker rock for a whole new generation.
Yeah, and we're exploring why her story matters so much for anyone trying to maintain their identity in the internet age. So where does a story like this actually begin? I mean, take me back before the stadiums and the viral hits. Who is she before she becomes Beabadoobee?
Well, to really understand the artist, you have to look at the specific cultural melting pot she grew up in. So she was born in Iloilo City in the Philippines in June of 2000.
Okay.
But when she was just 3 years old, her parents relocated the family to West London. So right away, you have this incredibly rich but, somewhat divided cultural backdrop.
Right. Totally different worlds.
Exactly. She's growing up in a household where she's absorbing original Filipino music, which is a genre broadly referred to as OPM, known for its deep melodic emotionality. And she's hearing that right alongside mainstream 90s pop and British rock.
I noticed a really interesting detail in the sources about her connection to that heritage, actually. She understands Hiligaynon and Tagalog, which are the Philippine languages spoken by her family, but she doesn't actually speak them herself.
Yeah, that's a very common experience for kids of immigrants.
Right. So how did that dynamic shape her as a kid?
Well, it created a distinct feeling of existing between worlds. I mean, you're in West London trying to navigate British culture at school, but your home life is rooted in these Filipino traditions that you understand, but you can't fully vocalize.
It's got to feel incredibly isolating.
It does. Psychologically, that often fosters a profound sense of being an outsider. You aren't fully one thing or the other. And so as a teenager, she starts heavily gravitating toward indie rock artists who actively celebrate that exact outsider status.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. So who is she listening to during this period? Who's the soundtrack to this era?
She's listening to Karen O from the she's listening to indie acts like Florist and Alex G, and she was deeply inspired by Kimya Dawson. Yeah, specifically her work on the soundtrack to the movie Juno,
which is basically the holy grail of quirky misfit teenager soundtracks.
Yeah, but she wasn't always a guitar player, right? I read she actually spent 7 years learning to play the violin.
She did, yeah. She had a very formal, structured musical foundation with the violin, but it isn't until she hits a massive roadblock that her artistic identity really takes shape.
The expulsion.
Exactly. Yeah. She's at Sacred Heart High School, which is this rigid, all-girls Catholic school, and at 17, she gets expelled.
And the official reasons included that misfit behavior we mentioned earlier, alongside the bad grades, which to me sounds like a superhero origin story.
It really does. Because how does that expulsion serve as a catalyst? For a lot of kids, getting kicked out of school is just a downward spiral.
Right, it's the end of the line. But for her?
For her, it acts as a forced redirection. The structured, highly regulated environment of a Catholic school completely rejected her. So that rejection forced her to seek out a space where her specific brand of misfit energy wasn't a liability. It was an asset.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, she finishes up her schooling at Hammersmith Academy, but more importantly, she gets her hands on a secondhand acoustic guitar.
Just a cheap used guitar.
Yeah, she uses YouTube tutorials to figure out how to translate the melodies she's hearing in her head onto the fretboard. And the very first full song she writes on that guitar is a track called Coffee.
Okay, wait, I have to ask about the name before we get into the song. Beabadoobee. Where does that actually come from? Because it doesn't sound like a focus group stage name cooked up by a bunch of executives.
Oh, not at all. The name literally comes from a Finsta.
Okay, for anyone who might not be deep into internet culture, what exactly is a Finsta?
Right, so a Finsta is a fake or like private Instagram account.
Yeah.
Teenagers use them to post unpolished, chaotic, or highly personal thoughts just for a tiny circle of close friends.
Right, completely separate from their main, heavily curated public profile.
Exactly. And when she was trying to create this account, all her real names were already taken by other users, so she just mashed the keyboard and typed in Beabadoobee as a joke.
Just a completely gibberish handle.
Yep.
That is amazing. So how does a Finsta handle become a global brand? Like, how does that jump happen?
Fast forward to September 2017, her friend and producer, Oscar Lang, is helping her upload Coffee to the internet. He tells her she needs an artist name for the upload.
And she didn't have one prepared, obviously.
Right, she doesn't have one, so she just shrugs and tells him to use her Finsta handle.
That is the most effortlessly Gen Z origin story possible. She just shrugs and uses a keyboard mash.
It really is. And the song itself, Coffee, is incredibly raw. It's an intimate acoustic track that critics would later categorize as lo-fi bedroom pop.
Lo-fi meaning low fidelity, right?
Exactly.
Because it literally sounds like a teenager playing in her bedroom with a cheap microphone.
Exactly. So they upload it, and organically, like without any major marketing budget, it pulls in over 300,000 views on YouTube.
Which is huge for a first upload.
Massive. That traction catches the attention of Dirty Hit, which is an independent British record label, and they officially sign her in April 2018.
So she gets the record deal. That's a huge achievement. But from what I understand about her career, signing the deal is really just the prologue. Because what happens next is the kind of viral explosion you literally cannot plan for. How does this bedroom pop song suddenly take over the world?
Well, between 2018 and 2019, she's building a very respectable indie fan base. She releases a string of EPS, Patched Up, Love Worm, and Space Cadet.
Okay, building a solid catalog?
Right. But then the internet does what the internet does. In 2019, a Canadian rapper named Powfu stumbles across Coffee and samples it for his own song, which he titles Deathbed, in parentheses, Coffee for Your Head.
Okay, an indie artist getting sampled by a rapper, that happens all the time. Why was this so different?
Because of the mechanics of TikTok. In early 2020, Deathbed completely explodes on the platform. I mean, it becomes an inescapable sleeper hit.
Like everywhere you scroll, it's there.
Exactly. It goes top 5 in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. It earns platinum and multi-platinum certifications globally. Beabadoobee's soft acoustic voice is suddenly the background track to millions of videos.
Heard by literally hundreds of millions of people. I have to introduce an analogy here because the psychology of this fascinates me.
Yeah, go for it.
Imagine you are a master painter. You spent years studying oils, mastering perspective, and you're preparing for a massive gallery exhibition of these huge, complex canvases that represent your true vision.
Okay, I'm with you.
But right before the show, someone finds a little doodle of a coffee cup you scribbled on a diner napkin when you were 17. They post it online, and suddenly that napkin doodle goes massively viral.
Oh, man.
Right. Millions of people are flocking to your gallery, but they're walking right past your oil paintings and demanding to see more diner napkins. It's a complete hijacking of your artistic intent.
That is the perfect way to understand the algorithmic trap of modern music. TikTok doesn't care about the oil painting.
No, not at all.
The algorithm isolates a 15-second audio loop and divorces it entirely from the artist's visual identity, their ethos, and their broader catalog. The listener hears that acoustic loop while watching like a cooking tutorial or a dance challenge.
They have no idea who Beabadoobee is. They just know the napkin doodle.
Exacts.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though. She's getting multi-platinum plaques. Millions of people are hearing her voice. It's opening doors that most musicians would kill for. But I read her reaction in the sources where she said about the viral hit, quote, "I kind of hated it."
Yeah, she did say that.
Doesn't that sound, well, kind of ungrateful to a listener?
It's very easy to view it that way from the outside, but you have to look at the immense pressure it puts on a young artist. The music industry loves to put young female artists into easily digestible boxes.
Right, they want a neat package.
Exactly. The algorithm labeled her as a soft, acoustic, lo-fi bedroom pop girl. And once the algorithm tags you, it demands that you keep producing that exact same sound because that is what generates engagement.
She was trapped.
She was. She resented the fact that millions of people thought her entire identity was encapsulated in the very first song she had ever written.
Right, she said, and I quote, "I hated more people knowing about the first song I'd ever written and not my others."
Exactly. Now, to her credit, she eventually processed it. She later said, I was so stubborn, but I grew into it and accepted that's just how life works. She was extremely grateful for its existence and acknowledged it gave her more opportunities.
But the underlying artistic frustration was very real. If the machine wants napkin doodles, how do you force it to look at your complex paintings?
Well, what do you think her strategy was? How do you actually break out of a box that hundreds of millions of algorithmically driven fans have put you in?
Honestly, I'd probably just quit. But she did something entirely different.
She made her new music so loud that it simply could not be ignored or miscategorized. For the next phase of her career, she aggressively leans into a heavy, distorted 90s rock aesthetic.
A total pivot.
Yeah. Her 2020 debut studio album, Fake It Flowers, is a complete, unapologetic reclamation of her rock identity. She starts pulling from 80s alternative and shoegaze bands acts like The Cure, My Bloody Valentine, and the Smashing Pumpkins.
Wait, can we pause right there? People throw around terms like shoegaze and slacker rock all the time in music journalism. But for anyone who isn't a massive music nerd, what do those terms actually mean in practice? Like, how do they sound?
Oh, great question. So shoegaze is a subgenre of indie and alternative rock that emerged in the late 80s and early 90s. The defining characteristic is a massive wall of sound.
Okay, wall of sound. What makes it up?
The guitars run through layers of heavy distortion and effects pedals, creating this washing, ethereal noise. And the vocals are often mixed very low, so they blend into the instruments rather than sitting clearly on top.
Like another instrument themselves.
Right. And it got the name shoegaze because the guitarists were constantly staring down at the floor, looking at their complex pedal boards during live shows. They were literally gazing at their shoes.
That is hilarious. And what about slacker rock?
Slacker rock is more about the attitude and the delivery. It has a lo-fi, seemingly unpolished sound with vocals that sound detached, apathetic, or almost lazy.
Hence the slacker part.
Exactly. But underneath that slacker delivery, there are usually very complex, catchy pop melodies. It's the sound of not trying very hard, while secretly trying quite hard.
But here's what trips me up. Beabadoobee was born in the year 2000. These genres, shoegaze, slacker rock, 90s fuzz, literally peaked and faded before she was even born. Is she just manufacturing nostalgia for an era she didn't even live through?
It's a common critique, but I think it misses how the internet has completely flattened time for Gen Z.
What do you mean by flattened time?
Well, when you have access to the entire history of recorded music on Spotify, chronology doesn't matter anymore. For her, discovering heavy fuzz pedals and the Smashing Pumpkins wasn't about retro nostalgia. It was about discovering a sonic language that perfectly matched her internal emotional state.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. The heavy distortion acts as a kind of sonic armor. When you feel vulnerable, wrapping your voice in a wall of distorted guitars makes you feel powerful.
And it clearly resonated with her generation, who were also dealing with that same modern anxiety. We're all looking for some sonic armor these days.
Absolutely. Fake It Flowers was a critical triumph. It hit number 8 on the UK albums chart. And despite the bedroom pop origins, Billboard actually looked at the data and ranked her as the top new rock artist of 2020.
Wow. She basically forced the entire industry to take the bedroom pop tag off her file and replace it with rock artist. And she didn't have to compromise to do it.
No, she didn't.
I love the detail in the sources that she actually has a tattoo of Daniel Johnston's artwork.
Yes.
He's one of the most legendary outsider lo-fi artists in history. She literally wears her raw, eclectic influences on her sleeve, or, well, on her skin.
She really does. And doing that foundational work, establishing herself as a serious, heavy rock musician on her debut, was crucial. Because once she proved she wasn't just a one-hit viral wonder, it bought her the freedom to experiment.
Which brings us to her sophomore album, Beatopia, released in 2022.
Yes, and this is where her strategy really evolves. On Beatopia, she explores a wider range of sounds. The track The Perfect Pair goes RIAA gold. But the most fascinating move during this era is what she does in early 2023.
With the glue song, right?
Exactly. She releases a track called Glue Song, but instead of letting TikTok hijack the song like it did with Comfy, she actively takes control of the platform.
How so?
She deliberately teases a snippet of Glue Song on TikTok right as Valentine's Day is approaching. The snippet goes viral with couples making romantic videos, and once the demand is at an absolute fever pitch, she officially drops the full track on February 14th.
Wait, hold on. A lot of industry analysts praise her for weaponizing TikTok here. But is she really weaponizing the platform, or is she just surrendering to the reality of the modern music industry?
That's a fair pushback.
I mean, it feels less like wielding a weapon and more like paying a mandatory toll. To survive today, you have to be a content creator first and a musician second.
That's a very sharp distinction, and you're right that the industry absolutely demands that artists play the social media game now. The difference here, though, is agency.
Agency.
Yes. With the Palfy sample, she was a passive victim of virality. Her voice was taken, sped up, and used without her artistic input. With Glue Song, she was the director.
Okay, I see.
She chose the snippet, she set the aesthetic, and she dictated the timeline. It might be a mandatory game, but she proved she knew exactly how to win it on her own terms.
And Glue Song wasn't heavy fuzz rock either, right? So she wasn't boxed into the rock sound either.
No, not at all. It was a chamber pop track. It featured lush strings and a much softer, more intimate vocal delivery.
Chamber pop being a style that blends rock music with intricate orchestral arrangements like violins and cellos, which actually brings her right back to her childhood instrument.
Precisely. Because she had already established her rock credibility, she wasn't afraid of being pigeonholed as soft anymore. She could use strings and acoustic guitars without the algorithm trapping her.
She proved she could do both.
And this flexibility made her touring profile explode. She starts doing massive international headlining tours. But she's also getting tapped to open for huge stadium acts. The 1975 Halsey, and then the absolute pinnacle of touring.
The Eras Tour.
Yes, she was an opening act for Taylor Swift on the U.S. leg of the 2023 Eras Tour.
You literally cannot get a bigger stage on the planet than the Eras Tour. It blows my mind. So let's bring this story right up to the present day. Because it is currently July 2026. Where is Beabadoobee standing right now?
She is standing at the absolute summit. I mean, in August 2024, she released her third studio album, This Is How Tomorrow Moves, which was a massive milestone because it became her very first UK #1 album.
Incredible.
And she has not slowed down. Just last month, in June 2026, she officially announced her fourth studio album, which is titled Pylon.
And Pylon is set to drop on September 18, 2026. The lead single, Sun Has Set, is already out. But what I find most compelling about this upcoming record is the roster of featured artists she's bringing in.
It's a huge statement of intent. On Pylon, she is collaborating with Hayley Williams, the iconic frontwoman of Paramore, and Brendan Yates, the lead singer of the hardcore punk band Turnstile.
Okay, if anyone out there is still somehow clinging to the idea that Beabadoobee is just a quiet, lo-fi bedroom pop girl, this completely shreds that moniker.
Oh, entirely.
Hayley Williams is practically punk royalty, and Turnstile is one of the most aggressive, high-energy rock bands on the planet right now.
Right.
You don't get those artists on your record unless you have serious, undeniable credibility in the heavy music scene.
Right.
I mean, that lineup permanently cements her as modern rock royalty.
It absolutely does. And for anyone wanting to see how this new, heavier era translates to the stage, she is kicking off her international Pylon tour in just a few weeks on July 30th, 2026.
I cannot wait for that.
It is a testament to incredible resilience. The industry tries so hard to categorize young women. The unwritten rule is, if you start soft, you have to stay soft. But she demanded the space to be loud, to be complex, and to collaborate with heavy hitters in the rock scene.
It's such an inspiring pivot. And it brings us right back to the beginning of our deep dive. Think about that label she was slapped with at 17 years old, Misfit.
Right?
The exact behavior that got a teenager expelled from a rigid academic system turned out to be her ultimate artistic superpower.
A misfit, by definition, is just someone who doesn't fit the predetermined mold. And because she didn't fit into the Catholic school mold, and she refused to fit into the viral TikTok mold, she was forced to build her own.
We've spent this entire time talking about how she managed to break out of that algorithmic box and force the world to see her full artistic vision. But honestly, looking at how the mechanics of viral fame work today, it introduces a pretty terrifying thought.
What's that?
If the algorithms are specifically built to only feed us exactly what we've already engaged with, How many other brilliant artists are currently trapped by their own viral napkin doodles?
Oh, wow.
Like, how many musicians are out there entirely unable to show us their masterpieces because an app has decided we only want their 15-second acoustic loops? The next time you're scrolling and a catchy viral hook gets stuck in your head, maybe take a second to ask yourself what you might be missing on the rest of that artist's album.
It's a sobering thought for sure. We are constantly being trained to consume fragments, but the real art always lives in the whole picture.
Exactly. Thanks for listening to Beabadoobee. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.